So let's go back to the beginning. The 1973 Piper PA-28R200. Let's just pause for a quick note, because my familiarity with the Piper Arrow goes a little deeper than most. My general aviation journey started in Oklahoma, working with the late great Carl Berge on this, the Berge Aerospace BA-14 Cougar, which is a heavily modified experimental 300 horsepower Arrow 2 that had its first flight back in 2017. But those are going to be stories for another time. I think it's fair to say that Carl gave me the education I needed to really understand critical systems on the single-engine Piper products. But okay, back to this thing. By my best calculations, based on the previous annual, the airplane had sat for about 6 years when I had bought it, and the owner was pretty confident in his ability to get the airplane up and flying, and I'm pretty sure he would have, but it would have been a really long journey for him without the partners and the friends that I have here in Savannah who helped me along the way. That airplane represented the most amazing opportunity at the time. The previous owner, Richard, and I had become friends maybe 4 years before I bought the airplane, 3 years before I bought the airplane. And over time I got to realize that the best thing for me to do would be to pitch him an offer on the airplane so I could rescue it, quite in the style of rebuild rescue, and get that airplane back up and flying. My finances didn't align at the time. I didn't think I'd be able to afford that airplane, but Richard, in his confidence with me, gave me an unbelievable deal for what is now my personal airplane. Got the airplane in July of 2023 and put it through an extensive annual that saw its first flight on November in 2023, and ever since I think I've put about 80 or 90 hours on that airplane, flying it across the southeast, as far as Miami at this point, and out to New Orleans. But that airplane has been operating and functioning really well. The airplane itself didn't have many squawks when I got to it. It had an extensive annual before it sat, sometime back in, I think, 2018. So the work that needed to be done to the airplane was extensive, but not outside the realm of the possible with a small hangar like this and the basic tools that are required to get an airplane up and running in an annual. So what I'm doing here is just poking around the engine bay, taking really good video of how everything's routed, looking for corrosion, looking for leaks, looking for any of those obvious things that would cause a problem later down the road. Of course, we were going to plan to replace every hose, every zip tie, anything that became brittle over time. Those are normal replacement things for an annual. What you're seeing here is just me pulling the prop through with the spark plugs removed, just to check that the engine's rotating freely. These aren't tutorial style videos. There are plenty other sources of information on how to do some of these things to bring these engines back alive, but what we're doing now is just trying to build up oil pressure with the spark plugs removed, using the starter and a new battery to turn the engine over and get oil circulating in the engine again. After everything had checked out good, put the spark plugs back in, and she fired up on the first try. So that was really the moment that I thought, yeah, we've got something really special here. The engine felt great. It ran really smoothly. There were no stumbles, no choking. Magnetos were all within spec. And now I'm starting to get really excited about this project. So this is what we found on the ground, just tons of water that had leaked through the old seals in the doors and windows, and this is not what you want to see in an airplane, but we eventually got a cover that solved this problem. Sitting here is when the reality sets in. You've bought an airplane that's not airworthy, you don't have a hangar to work on it, but you're just so excited to get started that you brave the heat in Savannah, 95 degrees and 90% humidity, and you just start to get things done. Okay, no joke here. Special shout out to my boys out at Signature who looked out for me all summer while I was working on this thing out in the open, who'd come by and tow me over to the Shadeport just so I could work on the airplane for a couple hours out of the rain, bring me waters. You guys really have a special place in my heart and got me so much further along in this project, so much faster than I could ever imagine. So, really, thank you so much. This is how most days would end, and this is how most days begun. After checking that all the systems worked and the engine seemed healthy before we could get into compressions and everything else, I didn't want to pause on the project, so I went straight into getting the interior removed and getting all the old adhesive removed to prepare myself for a carpet from a company called Airtex, and then some custom interior work from a local upholstery shop here in Savannah. I'll probably do an entire video just on the process behind getting the interior installed, but what you're looking at right here is what happened for a few hours inside the airplane. Chemicals to strip the old adhesive, and then a ton of elbow grease to get everything cleaned up. I'm pretty sure there's a much better way to do this, but without shade and without power tools, this is as good as it got at the time. In a future video, you'll see how we cleaned up the headliner, installed new plastics for the interior, and put it all back together. So ultimately, this is what we're going for. An airplane that will get you to your destination safely and reliably. And I hope the videos that I'll put out in the coming weeks will show you a little bit more of what it took over the next few months from those interior shots to get to this point. Thanks for tuning in, and I really hope to see you here again.